This show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers in Portland, Oregon, who live to help brewers learn more and ferment better. Join our recipe receiving Patreon groups and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us.
This program is made entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Oh man, I was playing the Patreon bumper that sounds like PBS there for a second. My bad, guys. Hey, hello, and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page. Now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President, that side, I always do it wrong, that side, Chief Keg Washer, El Jefe, Mr. Quarantine, Todd Burns. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Doing good. Yeah,
I'm good too.
Yeah, y'all were doing the gentleman thing once again. Y'all always do that. Todd, you should know James is the gentleman, and he's always going to let you talk first.
No, I'm not. Ask him. He'll tell you.
You're right. I've traveled with you. I know better. No, Kidding aside, man, I just had a blast us doing the recipe recap. And mainly not for any other reason than your beer, this Shorts beer here, Mr. Burns, is freaking incredible.
Oh, isn't that good? James, show him yours.
Oh, so mean.
I have a keg of it over there. I can keep refilling. Josh just really isn't much of a drinker. He still got some left from the show.
I do, because I'm enjoying it, and I've been conniving over here about how I can smoke a cigar in my office and not let my wife know, like not alert her too much. Because
just smoke it. I know it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
I know but it's gonna seep through. This is a garage too, so it's no ventilation, and I know I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna suffocate. But when I do open that door, which is again a standard garage kind of door, and all the smoke just right into my house, she'll go, "What were you doing in there?" I don't know, babe.
Well. It's better than alternatives. You know?
Absolutely. Thank you. You're right.
So there's no exit to the outside?
No. I mean, I could, in theory, if the garage door, because right on this side of this wall is 5 feet or 4.5 feet of storage space to our garage. Yeah. So I could probably run through this wall and be outside. But no, there's no formal exit.
You're going to burn. In other words.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And
that's a wonderful way of putting it.
And the lock is on the other side, so she could lock me in here.
Usually when you build something, you're supposed to put an exit anyway.
Todd, do I look like a smart person?
Can I ask you a personal question?
Here we go.
I would love that.
Yes. What the hell is on your shirt?
What are you talking about? What? It's
like a running man.
He's crouched. It's a wrestler. Todd, you were a wrestler. It's from Newaza, a grappling company. And he's been
I thought he was getting ready to fight something, but he was already dead. So yeah,
that's so fun.
I thought it was Blue Man Group with the low crawl.
Okay, that's so mean. Y'all are both. I have to confess that
Blue Man Pirates of the Caribbean is what I was thinking. But
Blue Man Wrestling.
Oh gosh, Blue Man Pirates. Todd, shut up. I had on Newaza is a brand, Newaza Apparel. Shout out to those guys. Who I usually just wear their t-shirts every day if I'm not wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And I had on a shirt that said grip till I RIP, grip till I rip. And it had a picture of of a skeleton, the Grim Reaper carrying another skeleton into a coffin. And I was wearing that before coming here. My wife said, you maybe take that off because people don't understand context. And so I was like, whatever, fine. I grabbed another shirt.
So then you put another shirt on that nobody would understand context.
I was going to say, I didn't think about it. I just saw the yellow shirt and I was like, okay, I'll put that one on. Todd, I don't think things. Oh, do you want me to get my Disney World shirt collection?
No, we're good.
Because the only kind of t-shirts I wear are Nawaza apparel or Disney World shirts. Like, that's all I have. It's really creepy when I go to parent-teacher night at my kids' school. Or sometimes I wear the Hawaiian shirt. So, I'm the cool dad. Not at all. My kids have let me know that. But anyway, thank you for joining us for the Homebrew Happy Hour. We have a great show, a lot of questions. Before we get into those questions, I want to talk some small talk. This Saturday is the AHA's Big Brew, and it's virtual. They're trying to set this world record, I suppose, of getting the most people brewing at the same time, like collectively in an organized way. And so what is this Saturday? Is that the 2nd? It is. So Saturday, May the 2nd, you can go to the American Homebrewers Association's website, americanhomebrewers.org, and go find all the information. They have support material if you're trying to get your club involved and stuff. They have recipes that they recommend brewing. It's 2 different IPAs, so my dad and I aren't brewing their recipes. We're doing the next worst thing. No, I'm kidding. People love this style. We're brewing the German Weizen beer. We're brewing a Hefeweizen, the Helleweisen from Homebrew Supply, which is one of May's recipes. We have a Patreon, if you don't know, because I don't talk about it ever on this show, that 2 of the top tiers get recipes every month or every other month. We had such a good response back in February when we let people decide between a fest beer or an Oktoberfest. They just love the option of being like, hey, I like picking that one or this one. So we brought that back. So from now on, we're going to have options. So for the month of May, the Helleweisen, which is, I'm told, a delicious Hefeweizen recipe from Homebrew Supply. And the other one is a Swinging Blonde Ale. I can speak on that one. I don't know. Have y'all brewed it or had it before?
No, but
I have never brewed popular. That one. Yeah, I need to brew it because it'd be a great summer beer.
See, then you brew that one so that we can have it for recipe recap since I'm doing the Helleweisen.
Okay.
It is their number 1 selling recipe, like, of all time on Homebrew Supply. It goes out the door. All I've heard is amazing things about that recipe kit. So I'm excited for the month of May. You can go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Get all the details there. We are doing a lot of stuff as well in our private Facebook group, which you can get the link when you're there. And then I'm trying to think of what else we have going on for the Patreon. I already talked about the Big Brew. That's all I have going. I have a brew day. My dad and I just kegged a 5-gallon batch of the Happy Little Hops, which was this month's recipe kit, and tasting it without carbonation yet, albeit without carbonation yet. I'm very excited to have it on tap this weekend. It's a good time for beer right now in my area. James, we've talked before, and you were beerless at your home.
Yeah,
how's that?
Am.
Are you really?
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah.
Did I mention I have 6 kegs, 6 different beers on tap right now?
I think it's that guy right there.
But I've been giving you all the beers. You just drink them. Yeah.
And the
you've had visitors though. I haven't.
Yeah, Schwartz beer. That was the delicious one, and it lasted maybe a week. No, it lasted longer than that. Be honest with you, my brother loved it, hated the fest beer, and I love the fest beer. And
I have the fest beer still too.
Yeah, there's no accounting for taste with my brother. So, John, if you're listening, it's true.
Yeah, I love that. If you're listening, it's true. I thought you were going to say, if you're listening, I love you, man. No, if you're listening.
No, it's true.
Yeah. You know what? When I first tapped it, I was like, it's good, but it's a little sweet. I love it now. Like, I'm trying to make it last because I kind of lied. I said I had 6 beers on tap. I have 4 beers on tap. But I have 2 more that are going on tap tonight. So I'm going to start hitting those 2 beers and then kind of saving the others so that I love having there's something to really be said about having a variety of beers on tap. You know what I mean?
And have I mentioned yet just how incredible this is? Oh my
goodness.
Thank you.
Not rubbing it in, James. I mean, because we had the same amount. I'm just a slower drinker. But man, also, have I mentioned that I want to smoke a cigar? Anyway, so if you want more, Brew Day, my dad and I are going to do the Helleweisen on Saturday. I'm really excited for that. I have also a bunch of beer coming y'all's way. We're going to, this weekend, while we're brewing, we're going to use the beer gun and get y'all some Kolsch, which I won't spoil anything, but the Kolsch didn't turn out very well, friends. We're still drinking it. It's just very boozy, and there's a lot to go over about it that we'll cover on a future episode of Recipe Recap. The Happy Little Hop seems like we nailed it. It is a delicious, smooth session IPA. I'm excited to get carbed. And then that alt beer is really gotten good. Like we all have had the alt beer, and we did an episode of Recipe Recap on it, and it just is getting better with time. And that's, to be truthful, that's the way they do it in Dusseldorf. It's 8 weeks minimum after primary fermentation. So it's the kind of beer that really likes to sit around and mature. Now, do you think
that's what I like to do? I like to sit around and mature.
I was going to say, Todd, golly, you're meant to be in Dusseldorf, except for 8 weeks or 8 months. It's
damn it, yeah, we could all be there right now.
Look at this. Look at this hair, huh?
Isn't that cool?
That's
that is cool.
Maturing hair there.
I told him the other day, he came in, I'm like, dude, you've got the surfer vibe. You're rocking it. I would keep that hairdo.
I'm wearing the can, so I'm not taking it off. But my wife, we did a quarantine haircut. She cut the girl's hair, and she did such a good job. I was like, I can trust her to shave my head. I want to do.
Oh, come on. Let's see it.
I said, I want to do a 4 guard, and she picked the 2 guard, and it's, and I'm done.
Oh, that's not bad.
If you could lean forward, maybe I could see some hair. Oh, there we go.
Hold on. If I lean forward, look at this.
Is it a double mohawk?
Look at that.
They can't hear us.
Yeah, it gives you you have like a Mr. Clean thing going on. You look tough.
I'm like a fat Mr. Clean because I'm up like 15 pounds.
Dude, that is a double mohawk. You have 2 mohawks. That is so cool. Wow.
Don't you be patronizing, you son of a gun. Josh, that's really neat. You have mastered the art of insult. Like, you are so good.
I just gave you a compliment.
Yeah. Bop, backhanded compliment.
No, I think it looks good on you. I really do.
Thank you, James. Yeah. I'm actually considering going full bald just because of how much of the front.
I mean, honestly, it gives you a little tougher.
That's what my wife said. My wife said, well, you're some tough guy now. I said, you're the one who messed up my head. What are you talking about? I didn't do this.
You got kind of like a Bill Goldberg thing going on there.
Goldberg, yes. I didn't watch WCW, but when he came over
James, to WWF, you got a haircut, right? You were able to find
mine was really short, see?
Nice.
It's really short.
It's a beautiful head of hair on both of you. Whatever, guys. Screw you.
My gray hair.
Yeah, I'll trade you. I'd rather have gray hair than of a chest and back forest with nothing on top.
Maybe they could move some over, like graft it over.
Yeah, I don't know. Joe Rogan said it doesn't work. I listened to his podcast, but anyway, I'm done with this. Let's get to the questions. This show's going down. First question came from our buddy Albert, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Albert wrote, "Hey there, gang. Great show and great banter. Keep it up." It's not that great. I wanted to know, what are the most common indicators that our beer had oxygen introduced to it, and if there is anything that can be done to fix this. Guys, I know this can be a very short and sweet answer, but let's try, I
would say, first thing you need to do is get some cardboard and chew on it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey, and I'm laughing because I've been there, and it is so easy. Your taste buds are so sensitive to that particular flaw. It doesn't take a lot of splashing in the corny keg when you're filling it to make that happen. I've done it. So
we've all done it. We've all done it. I can give you some tips. I'm sorry, Josh. I cut you off with my
I was stuttering.
Corny joke.
The best part of that was I was stuttering into you beginning to stutter and then get the answer that I was going to say. So it worked out. The sound clip I'm going to use for this week is me going, and then you interrupting with, and then the answer. It worked out great, man. I have done this plenty of times as well, James, and I didn't know. I took this question for a bunch of reasons. One, Albert, all these questions today, besides I think the last one, have been in my inbox for a while. and I feel bad when questions that we haven't addressed maybe are sitting in the inbox. And because I want everyone, if I could take every question submitted, y'all know I would, because I'm just impressed that we get questions submitted at all, much less at the rate we get them. I mean, we're getting, I don't want to exaggerate, so I'll go on the low end. We get 50 a day, probably, give or take. And a lot of it's repeat. So I know, I'll write back to them like, oh, we answered that on episode, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think we've ever necessarily addressed oxygenation. And I wanted to just cover maybe some basic stuff like Todd, or you just said about, or James, pardon me, you said like, it doesn't take a whole lot of splashing.
No.
What about because I know a lot of people, even in the newer keggers, will purge their keg with CO2. And then will that prevent, even if there's a little splash?
Absolutely. Yes, it will. Todd's really good at that. You sit and watch him do it. I mean, he needs to put out a video.
Yeah, we should do a video.
Yeah, just purge the keg with CO2. You've already got the CO2 if you're kegging. So just purge the keg, pull the valve relief on the lid, so you get a flow. But I would actually purge it on the liquid side. That way the CO2's at the bottom, works its way to the top, and then at least, because CO2 tends to hang around in the keg, and if you do that, I think
that's exactly what I do. I take the disconnect. That's the liquid disconnect, which is typically the black one. I put that on the liquid side, but I connect it to the CO2 gas line, and then I turn the gas on. And I typically put my hand over the top of it and kind of vent it. And so I don't know why I like to feel the pressure and venting it out. So I vent it out for maybe 10 seconds. And then I put it in. It depends on how you're transferring it, because I transfer several different ways. But typical, let's say glass carboy, I'll put it in there, start the transfer, and actually run the CO2 still, and then I start to pull the CO2 line out as it's filling up.
Yep.
And
that's very important.
So it helps a lot. I mean, I haven't had any problems with oxidization. Will you say that word for me?
Oxygenation?
God, I could not say that.
It's actually oxidation, guys.
Oxidation for quite a while.
Don't you correct us.
Oxidation. Yeah.
No, man. I don't mind oxidizing. I don't like oxygenizing. Okay, James.
How about oxygen?
Yeah. We shouldn't have done recipe recap before doing the real show.
Exactly. I don't think one beer. I can't pronounce that word.
No, it's just one of those words.
Wait, Todd, you've also been going back to the kegerator. I've seen you. Not one beer. Come on. Is there?
Yeah, we're all jealous.
Yeah, totally jealous. When you are purging, are you again just trying to give like tips out to Albert? Because is that the time that oxygen will probably be introduced to someone's beer is during transfer into a keg, or are there other times from brew day to serving that oxygen can also commonly be introduced?
Well, that's a great question. So a lot of times it will also happen when you're going from the primary to the secondary. So I do the same thing when I'm going to the secondary. I purge that glass carboy as well. And I've actually got a bung with a hole in it that I stick a stainless steel dip tube down into, and then I will purge that in the same way for quite a while, and then start to put the beer in, pull it out, and totally fill it full of CO2 as I'm putting it in the secondary.
Interesting. Yep. James, you do the same thing there at headquarters, or do you not have to because of the equipment?
I don't secondary. So we've got the spike conical. And then I push the beer into the kegs with CO2. So I'll purge the keg with CO2, and then I'll leave the depressor valve and the lid open when I transfer in. So it's pretty simple.
And that eliminates oxidation, right? I mean, that is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. That's where you get it, is those two places almost always. Yep. And I do the same thing when I'm brewing on this system, but I tend to brew enough to where my fermenter's often got a lager in it and it's full. So when I'm doing an ale, a lot of times I'm putting in secondaries when I'm doing an ale. So
I'm excited about this year at some point getting a conical from Spike, probably the CF15 to just a future proof, maybe the CF10 because we're just doing 10-gallon batches.
No, get a 15.
No, you got to get a 15.
Okay.
You got to get 15.
So the CF15, let me rewind. So when I get the CF15, I'm looking forward to seeing how much more consistent our beers can be and how much just better tasting overall. Because I think a lot of our end results have been dumb luck because of the way. I mean, I say dumb luck. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I don't agree with that at all. I think that if you're careful the way you do it, I wouldn't call that luck. I think
so. Then would we not have to be as careful? Or, you know what I mean? We wouldn't have to be so rigorous in the conditions if the conditions are controlled through the equipment, right?
True. I mean, if you've got the right equipment, better equipment is less work.
Right.
Everybody knows that from working on cars to brewing beer. But it's all about the tools you have. As long as you know the process and you know what causes this and what causes that, and you're aware of it, then you're not going to make those mistakes.
So we didn't completely answer the question. His last thing was, is there anything you can do about it once you have oxidation? And I would say to that, a clothespin over your nose seems to help. But really, you just have to learn from it. You have to. I mean, that we've all learned that lesson. It's a hard lesson to learn when you have to drink 5 gallons of beer that's oxidized. But
yeah,
I mean, it happens, and don't worry about it. Just the next time, be more careful, and you won't have the problem again.
Maybe drinking the whole 5 gallons of oxidized beer will prevent you from ever doing it.
That would really help you if you drink the whole 5 gallons.
That neither one of you suggested dumping it. My people,
it's funny, but for years and years when I first started homebrewing, a lot of times I would brew a beer and I would say, it's got that homebrew taste. I don't know why it always has that homebrew taste. And I was like, every time I try people's homebrew, it's got that extra taste. It tastes like homebrew. It's oxidation. It's oxidation. That's exactly what the homebrew taste is. So yeah.
So it's actually, I would go even further from the first question is it's a combination of banana and cardboard.
That's if I had to have cardboard, that's the flavor I'd pick. I mean, just trying to find. So thank you, Albert, for submitting your question. This is a great time to remind y'all, when you submit your question and we take it on air, we send you a $25 gift certificate to kegconnection.com. So thank you, Albert. And kind of segueing off of his question, because I think it rolls perfect into this next one, came from our buddy Randall, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Randall wrote, long-time listener, multi-time question submitter, and 0-time winner of Todd's gift card money. Sad face. He said, "No,
I love that.
People know how to get their question on air.
That has changed now.
Appeal to my ego or appeal to my feelings." So he says, "No hard feelings. My question for you fellas is this: I am getting, and I'm going to butcher this. I am getting isoamyl acetate." Esters and most of the beers I've made this year, and I cannot pinpoint the cause. Some of the batches used older yeast, so could that be it? My fermentation is temperature controlled, and I don't feel like I am underpitching, but maybe I am. I assume the packs of yeast I buy are intended for 5-gallon batches, and so that's what I pitch. What do you think? Man, Randall obviously knows his stuff because he kind of covered the points already. So let's kind of go down them.
Yeah, he did, and I feel like I'm kind of an expert on this, so. But I'm going to let James answer just because I feel like I need to give him a chance.
Benevolent. Benevolent.
Well,
burns.
I mean, isoamyl acetate is a fancy word for banana flavor. So anybody that's had a German Hefeweizen and you get that estery banana, some people would say Perry taste, that's what he's talking about. And there's the easiest way to get that is in the yeast. So there's a lot of yeast that's designed to produce those kind of esters, and you have to ferment it at room temperature. Sometimes you can actually underpitch, and I know he said that he has temperature control. So I would ask him, what temperature are you specifically fermenting at? Because sometimes if it was me and I got that, I would make sure I had the correct amount of yeast cells pitched for the batch, given gravity levels. That's very, very important because lad time can produce those as well, because it's in some styles it's considered a flaw. So I'd make sure I had the right amount of yeast, the right amount of temperature. And if I produce that with the right amount of yeast, I would make sure the yeast is healthy. So always do a starter if you're going to, if that's something that's bothering you, and then go 2 or 3 degrees colder to just rule out temperature as the way it is. And if you go colder and you still have that and you pitch the right amount of yeast, healthy yeast, then change yeast strains. Try something else.
I think he made a good point with the older, or he brought up something worth talking about. James, when yeast is old, it's the viability it loses, right?
Well, that's it. And it's all about numbers. So the yeast is going to still consume the viability, or the amount of yeast cells that are actively, eating sugars and producing CO2 and alcohol, but also they're multiplying, and those multiplied numbers are doing the same thing. So if there's a 24, 48 hour period where you don't see high krausen, that's called lag time. So sometimes if you stress the yeast, they can produce those kind of esters. Another thing a lot of people don't think about too is the fermenter shape too. That can accentuate. So if you've got a shallow, big fermenter, it puts more pressure on the yeast. They can produce those kind of compounds. So you generally a narrow, tall fermenter, there's less pressure or actual pressure on the yeast to produce those kind of things. A lot of times a carboy and what we're using in the homebrew industry, that's not going to be an issue. So I would, if it was me, my personal opinion on that is I think it's probably cell count or cell viability or both.
And Todd, I have been, when I take recipes home, like when I was going there, way back in the old days when I could travel to headquarters and have the guys make a recipe, and I'd just go in the freezer and get a pack of Imperial. I'd purposely get the older packs because we're brewing in house basically, right? We don't need the freshest. Have I always just lucked out that we haven't had this issue that much with brewing, or is that again because maybe Imperial, because they pack?
Yeah, you're using Imperial and it's probably not out of date, so you've been fine. Yeah. I think one of the technique I would use on this is just whatever you brew, just in the name of Weizen. So a Pale Ale Weizen. Or an IPA Weizen.
If it has that clove banana.
People will expect it to have those flavor profiles.
That's great.
And it won't be wrong anymore. So that would be my suggestion.
Oh, can I tell y'all about my Kolschweizen then real quick?
I love a good Kolschweizen.
Or an alt beer Weizen.
Oh, the alt beer Weizen, Kolschweizen.
Hello, Weizen.
Oh man, I tell you
Stout
what.
Weizen?
Oh, we actually, and I want to talk about it just because it's so embarrassing and I like humiliating myself. But our Kolsch is a boozy, punch you in the face. Like, we used way too many grains because I didn't bother to check the instruction sheet before pouring them all in the bag. So we poured like almost twice the amount of grains we needed for it was just steeping grains. It was an extract kit. So I don't know how much that affects the end result, but it got boozy, James. And
I've made my share of those, trust me.
So I have a suggestion for this too as well.
What's that?
Just call it an Imperial Kolsch.
Oh! Yeah, if James can have a blonde alt, I can have an Imperial Kolsch.
It's all about marketing, Josh. It's all about marketing. You should know that.
I'm going to make the artwork for the show notes for my Stubing's Brauhaus Imperial Kolschweizen. And, that'll go good when we finally have people over. I've been
Imperial cardboard Kolschweizen.
Hey, there's no cardboard in this. I'll say that. The last time I had cardboard was in my ESB, and I knew why. Remember that story? As I was letting it splash because I was on my phone, and about a minute into splashing, I go, "What am I doing? Oh no!" Yeah, and when people when we had it at maybe it was a Christmas or Thanksgiving a couple years ago, and people were tasting like, "Oh, that's good," I was thinking in my head, either they're dumb or they're lying.
No, they're being nice. Yeah. They're thinking, yeah, that's exactly what I thought homebrew would.
They're doing what Todd was saying, right? Like, it has that homebrew taste. Huh?
Oh yeah, this is definitely homebrew.
Yeah. Yeah, every time they have a bad beer, like, Josh, this reminds me of what you brew. Huh? Anyway, I love it. Randall, first off, I'm happy you submitted all these questions. And I had to go back. He's been submitting questions since 2016, guys.
Oh, wow.
I want to give he's been in it for the long haul.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah, we really do.
I'm so sorry it took me this long, Randall. But it was a great question because I think obviously he knows what he's doing. He's been brewing for at least 4 years. On some of his earlier questions, he mentioned that he'd only been brewing for a couple years. So he has some experience under his belt. And even, the thing I've learned, and like James, you said before, it may not happen all at once where you get all the equipment that makes your process easier. But over time, if you can, man, it goes a long way. Like I'm telling you, when I'm so jealous of y'all, not just the 3-tier systems y'all have, because y'all make the best beer I ever have had between all of our homebrew is on y'all systems, but just the fermentation, I'm so jealous. Temperature control is everything. And y'all in those spike fermenters are so legit. Like they're being able to do everything post brew day in one vessel. Like, I mean, like you said, you could basically turn it into a serving vessel if you had to, or if you wanted to, the way y'all have it set up.
Yeah. I used it last night as a serving vessel.
I've got to try this.
Exactly. And then you're like, man, wait, are we just trying this or are we drinking it? Just shut up. just enjoy it. But
doesn't matter.
And I want to, one more thing before we go past Randall's question. His assumption is correct. I don't know of a yeast manufacturer that doesn't make the pack intended for a 5-gallon batch. Do they exist?
That's true. I don't know.
Well, it's either a 5-gallon pack or it's for a commercial brewery. Those are the two choices.
Exactly. That was my
a lot more than 5 gallons.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I saw those at Wes's brewery. You guys wouldn't believe. I mean, it was huge.
Who did he
bag this big?
White Labs, right? Is who
White Labs, yeah.
And they make great beer too. Wes Teddy's Brewhouse. I don't think they're making beer right now, or are they?
Oh, he called me Friday, and he was just wanting to see. He hadn't heard from me in a while. Wanted to see how I was doing, how everything was going, and he said that they're crazy busy. He was wanting to price a turbo faucet or the quick draft, and
no way.
Oh yeah, he was like, we need something that can fill growlers faster. I told him how much they cost, and pretty much ended that conversation.
He hung up on you. Hey, the quick draft for this, it makes sense for them because what is it, like a $600?
That's what I told him. I said, if you want to eliminate long lines and pour really fast foam-free beer, that's your faucet. But he didn't see the value in the price.
Yeah. Every sports stadium in Europe does, buddy.
Absolutely. And I told him that too. I said, really? I know when Todd and I went to the Cowboys game a couple years back, they could sure use one of those faucets.
Oh, that's a whole other episode. I go to sports events twice a year.
The product loss got to be 30 or 40%.
Bad. I always thought local bars was bad until you go to a sports arena in America. Holy moly. They're just pouring beer with the glass like this and just letting all the beer pour out.
The glass.
They easily pour 2 pints for every pint they end up serving. It's disgusting.
Absolutely.
It's disgusting.
Of course, when you're charging $15 for a glass of beer, I guess.
Doesn't matter.
Well, and the funny thing is, too, those people serving couldn't care less because once they're out, their job's done. And they got paid the same anyway. So they're like,
they don't care. Yeah. They're just there for the money.
Let's just dump the whole beer out right now. Oh, I'm done. Sorry, gotta go. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. Randall, thank you so much for submitting your question. Fellas, we have one more question. It was sent in via text message to our phone number, 325-305-6107. It came from our friend Shelly B. She wrote, "Hello, I love the podcast and look forward to the information every week. I'm very new to brewing and found your show after ordering a recipe from homebrewsupply.com. Great service. The BTW, Todd, there is by the way. If you don't
okay, thank you for the acronym.
Yeah. My next purchase is going to be the Guinness recipe, and I don't know if nitrogen is a must if I do buy this recipe. So I think it's so again, it could be a very quick answer, but it's something that we can talk about. The short and awesome answer is no, you don't have to use nitro to dispense it. But James, tell us, because like the V3N being the versatile faucet it is and how easy it is to implement, and getting nitrogen isn't that difficult into your system. But what are the differences a person can expect if they were to dispense with nitro or just CO2?
You'll get that you can get that creamier. It's really cool to watch the nitrogen break out of the stout, especially when it's pouring. anybody that's poured a nitro stout, it dances through the glass. It gives you a creamier taste in your palate. It's just the presentation, and I think it even smells better. I mean, what do you think, Todd?
I love beers poured on nitro. I just love that super creamy flavor and texture, and I really enjoy it. So
yep. And the cool thing about the V3N, it's conventional styled faucet, so it's built to look like a regular faucet. You can unscrew the nozzle, take the diffuser, and there's a little alignment part that pushes beer. The beer hits that alignment part, and then it hits the diffuser. You can take those parts out, keep them safe because they're small, and it's a forward seal cream and faucet. It's pretty simple.
Now, pretty cool. I said, how it is easy to implement nitro into your system. I say into your system. You have to you're using a whole separate regulator. You're obviously using a whole separate cylinder for the gas. Like you don't mix cylinders, you don't mix regular. So it's kind of like its own standalone system that you would have. You could put it, if you have a teaser, you can drill out for the shank for just your nitro faucet and have all the things that you need, like the cylinder and the regulator inside the teaser with the beer line. Or does nitrogen have to be out? I actually don't know the answer to that.
No, it doesn't matter at all because it's a gas. There's no liquid at all. I mean, CO2 doesn't either, but no, it doesn't have to be out.
So perfect. So if you had the space, you could put it in there next to it, and then that line would just be dedicated nitro. I would say, because she is admitting that she's very new to brewing, if most people who are very new to brewing maybe have 2 taps if they're kegging. Most of the time they're bottling. I don't know of a way to bottle with nitrogen. Is that possible at a homebrew level, guys?
Sure.
Yeah,
it's definitely possible. I've never done it, so I don't. It's possible, especially like with a beer gun or something, a Blickman beer gun or something like that.
Ah, good point. I was thinking like if you use the priming sugar, how would you get the natural?
Oh, no, you can't. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. No, you can't. You can't do it without nitrogen.
Yeah, you have to
adding the nitrogen in a keg or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you would need to, like, if anybody that's used a counter pressure bottle filler, that's all a Blinkman beer gun is. Whereas you would have the CO2 connected, you would just connect nitrogen to it and fill it that way.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And that makes sense. I don't know why I thought, obviously I knew yeast does not, the reason why CO2 carbonating in bottles works is because yeast poops out CO2 with the alcohol. Yeah. So when you add the priming sugar, it gives it fuel to make the carbonation.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of fermentation.
Right.
So it's gonna carbonate and a lot of the naturally carbonated or bottled beers, they'll use just a generic yeast to produce that.
I think it probably farts it out though.
Yeah. Wait,
that's another term.
The alcohol is the poop, and
I like byproducts.
No. The alcohol's, I would think of it as pee, and then the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's farting.
You're right. I gotta
CO2.
I gotta retake anatomy or something. I don't know how it works, Todd.
I
would say, let's assume that maybe she's kegging. It wasn't mentioned, so it's a bold assumption. Yeah. I would say that you're probably not going to use nitro as much as you think you're going to use it, unless you're always doing these stouts or maybe cold brew coffee. So if I only had 2 taps, I don't know if I would dedicate one just to nitro, because
you don't have to dedicate it. I mean, you could have a splitter or air distributor on your CO2 and have it on CO2. And then when you're doing a nitro beer, at that point, you just hook it up to nitrogen, and then take it back off and put it back on CO2 the next time you do a beer.
And make sure you put the diffuser.
People do that a lot.
If you're using a V3N, make sure you put the diffuser back in.
That's right.
During the nitrogen,
yeah. Keep a hold of those parts. Yeah. We do have replacement parts, but they're tiny, and if you don't remember where you put them, you'll lose them.
I think this is probably this may not be true, but I think the vast number of people that have nitrogen on tap go back and forth on that tap, because even in a bar, unless they're serving Guinness all the time, you see them do that.
Well, okay, so then answer me this real question from me, because I don't know. the original Guinness faucet, the one that's been in the industry since before I was born, since before any of us were born, or maybe not y'all, or maybe not you, Todd, but before I was born for sure, is that also usable with a standard CO2 beer like the V3N where you can just remove the diffuser? I don't think it is, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So it does just have a diffuser. It's kind of a weird thing because it's so involved, right? But really what happens, the important thing that happens exactly the same way. There's just a diffuser, and you could take that diffuser out and serve a standard beer out of it as well. Although it may foam it too much. I haven't ever tried it, but yeah, I mean, really it's just a diffuser. I think I haven't Googled this, so I could be wrong. I think it actually came out like in the 50s is when they went to that.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
It wasn't a really long time ago. Like Guinness has been around since like the 1700s, and everybody thinks of it as a nitrogenated beer, but that's fairly recent.
It is. Yeah. And actually, I'm a YouTube nerd, and there's a cool documentary on YouTube you can watch on Guinness and how they brew their beer. And they mentioned that in the 50s, that's when they started dispensing it with nitro and the faucet as well. It's one to look up if you guys are on YouTube. Check it out. It's worth watching.
Another thing that makes it hard to do a Guinness exactly like it tastes from Guinness is that they actually put some of their old beer into the new batch when they're done. It's a small percentage, and it's like spoiled beer, and that's what gives it that little bit of a funny off taste, a wang that you taste in a Guinness. So it's very interesting beer.
That is interesting. And it's a go-to for me. Like, do you remember, James, when we went to that Irish pub in Prague and we first had a Budvar. They had, I don't remember if it was on tap or if they had bottles there, but
no, it was on tap.
It was on tap. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? Don't judge me. I'm going to have a Guinness. You're like, no, let's have a Guinness.
That's different tasting in Europe than it is here.
It is. What's up with that?
It's fresher. I mean, it doesn't have to make the long boat trip over here.
It was incredible. It was really good. And again, like, I know if I go to a bar, most bars have Guinness on tap. If they may have their craft beer option, may be kind of the standards that we also love, like a Fat Tire or in Texas, a Fireman's 4 from Real will be on tap. But there's always also that Guinness. So I know, if I'm, going to be around a while, or again, back to me and smoking cigars, like, Guinness was really good. And also Guinness, a low carb option. That's a little bit of trivia for you that Mr. Burns told me. It's, or is it low calorie? I don't know about carbs.
And also Guinness is low alcohol too.
Very low alcohol, very low calorie. It's an ultimate session beer. Yeah, they used to tax them on the alcohol level, so they kept the alcohol level low to keep their taxes down.
And I could be wrong, but I think it's like 3.5%, something like that.
3.2, 3.5, something like that.
Shut up! It's that low?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. Well, maybe that's why it's so smooth, and I can drink a bunch. And that is
somebody's going to have a Guinness bottle at home, and they're going to look at it. And they're going, "Those guys are full of it. It's 5%."
Yeah.
But you got to remember that the Guinness on tap, they have like 3 or 4 different Guinnesses you can get in the United States.
They do.
And we're talking about the original Guinness on tap,
right?
The one from Ireland. I mean, that is 3.5%.
Not the extra stout and all these other versions they have higher alcohol.
Right. Yeah. And there's also clone recipes of every version of Guinness. I had Homebrew Supply. Just a little plug for there. I've never brewed any of them. Have y'all brewed any of the clones from Guinness yet?
No.
It's on my list.
See, that might be
next winter.
That might be a good one. Todd, you've become like the king of clone beers, man. Like your Amber Lager was phenomenal that you did from Dos Equis. Man, I brain farted.
Yeah,
James, I see you're the king. Wait a second.
Yeah.
No, the best one of clones, James, your Fat Tire. That was never mind.
I don't know. I think the Schwartz beer is better than
No. I mean of clone beers that we've done on the show.
Oh.
Your Fat Tire. Whew, that's right. I thought Todd brewed it for a second. I was like, wait a second. That was James.
I don't know,
beer.
man. That they were all good. That Dos Equis was good too.
I had both on tap at the same time, and they were both so good. I just went back and forth between them.
Oh, and
it was a good time to be alive when I had them on tap.
Oh, and get this.
Didn't last long though.
We found, I want to say it's 2. I think my dad said he found 2 bottles of the breakfast stout in the back of his fridge that he and I
that's
brewed.
Another good one. That
was a good one.
So we're gonna.
I just drank my last bottle of it.
I told Folgers.
I know. Yeah, who knew? I told my dad. I said, let's save them for the upcoming, like for the next holiday season, and we'll open it up maybe on Thanksgiving and share it over a game of bad toss and a cigar.
That was good beer.
God, as good as it was, I'm going to brew it with good coffee and see how.
Can you imagine what it would have tasted like with good coffee? Whoa!
I can't imagine. I looked up Kona and Sumatra. Wow, the real stuff is. But you told me your dad had that in the cupboard, right?
Yeah, he had. I don't know which version of Kona. So my brother took his honeymoon to Hawaii and brought them back Kona coffee beans, and it was in his pantry. I saw it the day after we had already were dry hopping the Folgers, and I was like, Dad, we had that, and he was like, No, I like Folgers. So
it was good. I gotta say that was damn good stout.
In your face, Todd. But anyway, Shelly, thank you so much for submitting your question. Again, final reminder, friends, when you submit, whether through homebrewhappyhour.com or 325-305-6107, and we take it on the show, we give you a $25 gift certificate to catconnection.com, courtesy of Mr. Todd Burns over there. Thank you, sir, for letting me spend your money. Gentlemen, that's all I have for the show. I wish I had more. I don't have any beer in my fridge now. Your Schwartz beer was the last one, and I'm going to have to go to the store or go store to my dad's and steal maybe a growler or 2 of the Alt and the Boozy Kolsch. I don't know if I want the Boozy Kolsch would be like a Friday night drink.
There you go. That's not what you start on. That's
no,
what you
that's not what you start on. Yeah, that'll be my Friday night drink, but anyways, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to talking to y'all soon. And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submitted question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, Imperial Yeast, for supporting us and the home brewing community. Join any top tier of our Patreon community and you'll get free premium liquid Imperial Yeast shipped out to you with your Patreon recipe kit. Get more information at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.
This program is made possible by the checkbook of Mr. Todd Burns and by contributions to our newly launched Patreon by viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join our community. Thank you.